This is Yair Davidiy speaking to you from Jerusalem, the capital of Israel. I am speaking to you on behalf of Brit-Am Hebrew Nations, a movement that finds the lost 10 tribes now amongst Western peoples, and we research the subject and we prove it, and we bring knowledge, awareness of these proofs of this information to as many people as possible. That is, we do research, we research the subject, we reveal it, revelation, research, revelation, and then recognition or reconciliation. We work towards the reconcilement of Judah, that is the Jewish people, with the 10 tribes of Israel. And this also includes or implies an enhancement of biblical consciousness and coming together of both the Jewish people and the sense of the 10 tribes of Israel amongst Western nations, and awareness on both of them that they are brothers, that they have common origins, and they have obligations towards each other, towards the world, and towards themselves. This message is being delivered on the eve of Rosh Hashanah, on the eve of the Hebrew New Year day, and in the year 5774, 2013, in the common era. And tomorrow evening begins Rosh Hashanah, the celebration of the Hebrew New Year day, and it continues for 2 days. And to this year it is followed straight afterwards by the Sabbath day. And so this day has importance. It is a day of judgment and a day of, we hope, of liberation, a day of release, a day of good decrees. We sincerely believe that this is what will happen, and we hope very much that it will indeed happen, and that it will happen to everyone, especially to those descendants of Israel who need good decrees to happen to them. We have a message that the inspiration for which we derived, at least in part, from an article by Rabbi Reuven Brand. The article is entitled "A Serious Birthday Celebration," and we found this article in a magazine collection of articles on the subject of the holy days, the Jewish holy days, and this magazine type collection was anthology, one could say, was entitled "Torah to Go, September 2013. Torah to Go, September 2013. The Rabbi who gave the article is named Rabbi Reuven Brand. In this article, Rabbi Brand connects Rosh Hashanah, that is the New Year's Day. Rosh in Hebrew means head, Hashanah means the year, the head of the year, the first day of the year, and he connects it to the ultimate release of Joseph from prison. Joseph, as you all know or will recall, Joseph was the favorite son of his father Israel. Israel is also known as Jacob. Jacob had 12 sons. Jacob had 12 sons. His favorite son was Joseph. He showed Joseph favoritism, and he gave him a coat of many colors, which actually in Hebrew cotton pasim, which according to different studies and different commentaries, not only our opinion, but also the opinion of rabbinical commentators, this cotton pasim was actually in the design of a kilt, like a Scottish kilt. It had a tartan type design on it, and this was a symbol of rank. So too was the tartan kilts in Scotland. At all events, the brothers were jealous of Joseph, so they grabbed hold of him, threw him in a pit, and then they sold him to Ishmaelites and Midianites, to Arab-type peoples who were going down to Egypt, who were slave traders, and have always been slave traders. And most blacks who complain about slavery, they should complain to their Muslim, to the Muslims, whom they seem in some cases to admire, because the Muslims were the worst perpetrators and conductors of the slave trade, and they still are. And even then, these Arabs were involved in the slave trade. So they took Joseph and they took him down to Egypt, and they sold him as a slave in Egypt. In the meantime, the brothers, they dipped the cloak of Joseph in blood, and then they showed it to their father, and they gave their father the impression that Joseph had been killed by a wild beast. Meanwhile, Joseph was in Egypt. In Egypt, he was bought as a slave by Potiphar, who was the chief executioner of the king. Whilst he be in the service of the Potiphar, Potiphar made him the head of the household, the head of his, apparently had a whole ranch type operation going on, and Joseph was in charge of it all. He was also a young man, a handsome man, and so Potiphar's wife took a fancy to him, attempted to seduce him. When Joseph wasn't having any of it, she became angry. She was a woman scorned, as if to say, hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. So she alleged that Joseph had attempted to rape her, and therefore Joseph was put in prison. He was imprisoned on a false charge. Being in prison, he apparently was a very talented person, and once again he found favour in the eyes of his overseers, and he was put in charge of the other prisoners. And so whilst he was in prison, the two chief servants of Pharaoh, of the king of Egypt, were incarcerated. They were also imprisoned. One of them was the chief baker, and the other one was the chief cupbearer. Butler, as we would say, possibly say in English. Anyway, they dreamt dreams, and Joseph saw that they were perturbed by the dreams they had dreamt, and he interpreted the dreams to them. He said that the chief baker would be hanged, and the chief cupbearer would be restored to his position. Then we hear in the Bible this is exactly what happened. We are told in Genesis 40, chapter 40, verse 20, on the third day, which was Pharaoh's birthday, he made a feast for all his servants, and lifted up the head of the chief cupbearer and the head of the chief baker among his servants. He restored the chief cupbearer to his cupbearing, and he placed the cup in Pharaoh's hand. The chief baker he hanged, just as Joseph had interpreted to him. Yet the chief cupbearer did not remember Joseph, but forgot him. So we see how Joseph interpreted their dreams. Actually God revealed to Joseph the interpretation of the dreams, as Joseph kept on emphasizing. But according to the interpretation that Joseph had given, it came to pass. But even so, the cupbearer did not remember the case of Joseph to Pharaoh. He forgot him. Nevertheless, later on, when Pharaoh also had a dream, and two dreams in effect, and Pharaoh was deeply perturbed and worried by these dreams, the chief cupbearer remembered that Joseph had the ability to interpret dreams, and he recommended him to Pharaoh, and this led to Pharaoh speaking to Joseph and taking the advice of Joseph and appointing Joseph to be the chief ruler of the land, in effect the ruler of Joseph. So Joseph came out of imprisonment and became the effective ruler of Egypt, which at that time was the most powerful nation on earth. And from that it followed on that Joseph was eventually reconciled to his brothers and to his father, and he also saved the whole of humanity at that time. They were all in danger of being wiped out by a famine if Joseph had not predicted beforehand that the famine was about to take place, and he had not taken preventive measures as he did. And this is all this whole account, we can read about it you can see it in Genesis chapter 41, going all the way through to Genesis chapter 45 and onwards. And getting back to what we said, we saw that the day when on the third day, when the cupbearer and the chief baker, when their judgments were decided by Pharaoh, and it says in Genesis 40:20, as we read, on the third day, which was Pharaoh's birthday. Note that, Pharaoh's birthday. The birthday of Pharaoh, on the third day, which was Pharaoh's birthday, he made a feast for all his servants, and lifted up the head of the chief cupbearer and the head of the chief baker among his servants. That is, he had lifted up their head, he brought them into account. And the Talmud, Yerushalmi, Avodah Zarah 1-2, says that this birthday, the day of birth of Pharaoh, was also considered the day of coronation, and this is a phenomenon, a common phenomenon we find in royalty, in royal ceremonies and royal occasions. For instance, the Queen's birthday of England is not really the date she was born on, and so on, for all these reasons. And at all events, the day of coronation was considered was celebrated on the day of the birthday of Pharaoh, and on this day, it was customary for the king to review his kingdom. He would look back over the year, of his rulership and see what had happened in his kingdom, and also on the roles of his servants and of his officials and his ministers, and see if they had done what they'd been expected to do. And he would pass judgment if some person had been mistakenly amiss and had been punished and justly, or he had already served out his punishment. He would be restored to his position, as happened to the chief baker. But if someone had indeed done wrongly, and his final judgment had not been decided, but was then decided that he really had transgressed seriously, then he would be punished even more, which happened to the chief baker. So this is what this day was all about. And this day, according to tradition, was also the day of the Hebrew New Year. It was a Rosh Hashanah. And this is similar to what happens in heaven to some degree. The Rosh Hashanah is the first New Year day of the Bible, is mentioned in the Bible. The New Year day of the Hebrews is mentioned in the Bible. See Leviticus 23, verses 24 to 25. It says, "Speak to the children of Israel, saying, in the 7th month, on the 1st day of the month, you shall have a Sabbath rest, a memorial." Hebrew Shabbat Zikaron, that is a Shabbat-like day of remembrance, of blowing of the shofar, of Yom Truah, the noise produced by the shofar, a holy convocation. You shall do no customary work on it, and shall make an offering made by fire to the Lord. And we are judged on this day. It is recorded a day of remembrance, Yom Zikaron, in the Hebrew prayer book. Yom Zikaron, and in the Bible it's called Shabbaton Zikaron, a Shabbat-like day of remembrance, a day on which the past actions and events of the year are brought into consideration and judged, and each and every one of us is judged according to how we have performed the functions that we were supposed to perform, similar to Pharaoh did to the officials of his court. And on this day, in the Jewish prayer book, we often recall several times over. Joseph is recalled, and the 10 tribes are recalled, and the return of the 10 tribes are mentioned, and this day is important for that reason and for other reasons. And the 10 tribes do need to be remembered. They need to be remembered in favour. We identify the 10 tribes, the lost 10 tribes, with Western nations, with peoples in the West. We're not saying that everyone in those regions descend from the 10 tribes. We are saying that is where the 10 tribes are. The 10 tribes are amongst them. That is where they have to be looked for, searched for, and their presence there proven and brought to the attention of the people concerned, of those peoples. They should know their ancestry. And they are there, and they need to be released from captivity. They are not suffering. They are not captives in the physical sense. On the contrary, they statistically, at least statistically, on the average, they enjoy the highest standard of living in the world, or very close to it. They are the wealthiest people in the world, and have been for a very, very long time. And they are also those people who enjoy the greatest amount of personal liberty and so on, and recognition of human rights, and they have done more for the rest of the world than any other group of nations. And so they are, in that sense, they are not suffering, but they need to be released. They need to be redeemed, because they have forgotten their ancestry. It's like a block is there. It's a blockage closing out their identity. And this affects them psychologically and spiritually, and it impedes their ability to fulfill their function, because all of these blessings, or the positions that they are in, they are there for a reason. They are there for a reason because they have a goal, they have a mission to fulfill, which God placed upon them. That is why He caused them to be exiled and caused them to forget their ancestry in the first place, because they had to go down to the level of the Gentiles and then evolve upwards and bring the rest of the nations of the world with them, and to some degree they have done that. Now the time has come for them to be reawakened, to become aware once more, to be taken out of the darkness, as if to say, to be released from the captivity of forgetfulness, to have their identity restored to them. And that is what we are trying to do. That is what we are working at. And this apparently is our duty. It is our goal in life at this stage. This is what we should do and what we are endeavouring to do. And this is our calling, as if to say. And we hope in the coming year to better fulfill this calling. We have done quite a lot. Perhaps we should have done more. Or what we did, we should have done better. Next year, God willing, we will endeavour to do what we can. We hope we will be able to do so, that God will enable us. We also need the support of those who hear us, of our supporters, of our subscribers, of those who are interested in what we have to say. We need a financial participation of others, like everyone else, like every religious or political or any group research organisation which dedicates itself to a specific cause. We need our support, because without support we cannot function. And this applies to everything else and to everyone else. And we believe that those who receive this message, who are listening to us and are open to it, this is happening to them for a reason. They, as if to say, called out. Because why are they open to hear us and to listen to us and to take into consideration what we are saying, whereas others are not? And so this is what we are speaking to, and this is what we understand that needs to be spoken. And may God willing, may all of us know what we should do and be able to do it. May the God of Israel, the Almighty, bless all of the peoples of Israel and all of the world. Thank you.